This week on FX Guide TV.
Look at the amazing work that ILM did on the last Transformers film, as well as the huge range of new courses at fxphd.com.
This and more coming up next.
Hello and welcome to FX Guide TV. I'm Angie Dale. This week we continue our series of Nuke masterclasses. We sit down with Jason Billington of ILM to take a look inside one of the epic shots featured in the sequel, Transformers 2: Rise of the Fallen. The Devastator character was one of the biggest challenges for ILM, with 52,000 animated parts. But thanks to Nuke's 3D workflow tools, Jason shows us just how easy it can be to bring a giant chunk of metal to life in all its glory.
So we're just going to run you through a couple of things that we did on this shot here. This is one of the biggest shots that we had on Transformers 2, and it features Devastator, our main character. Big truck that comes being sucked in, comes in, hits all the blades that is in his mouth, explodes, and then gets chucked out the back. Lots of debris, lots of dust, just dirty it up. And yeah, Devastator is one of the biggest characters to go through ILM, and this was a very big shot to work on. So we're just going to run through a couple of placing the elements and checking out the script. So just over to my Nuke script here, I have Devastator over our background. Now, one of the first things I wanted to do, I wanted to get the explosion in the mouth of the shot, into the mouth of Devastator as the truck hits. So I've looked through our element library we have at ILM, and I found this nice explosion here. So I want to go into 3D land. And there we see our world that we're working in. We see our camera here, along with these lines. And I can see Devastator. And with Devastator loaded in Nuke, I can place elements exactly where I want them. So I found that explosion. I'm going to get a card. And as you can see, I move it out. There's my explosion on the card. Just hit F to frame it. And I'm going to put that explosion right in his mouth. So we're just spinning around, making sure it's in his mouth. He's got his head slightly tilted towards camera right here. So the mesh is pretty heavy, so it gets a little hard to see, but that's what we've got to work with. And this is a proxy res, small res of Devastator. Any bigger than this, and it's not very useful for us to use. So by putting this explosion here in his mouth, we're able to put it through the camera, and that's the position that we get. His mouth is about here, and here's my explosion. And as I put this over our comp that we have, you see the explosions lined up perfectly with his mouth. And if we were to move the camera further along in scene, this explosion will track perfectly in his mouth. So with a bit of cutting it out by the depth channel, we're able to put that explosion right in his mouth, give it a bit of interactive lighting, a bit of a glow, and this is the explosion right in his mouth, right as the truck goes through. And with that explosion, I now want to put a couple of sparks as the metal flies around his mouth as the truck gets eaten up. So I've got a explosion here, a spark that I found along the element, and just the same thing again. And then just place that element where it fits into the scene. So we get right into his mouth there. So as we put that element over top of Devastator's comp, we can see our little spark element hit there. Just hide the previous explosion. And there's our spark. So a few more of those that went into the actual comp, the final comp. And it just gave a couple of sparks every 5-10 frames, pop, 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 pop. It was worked really nicely. So here we have another spark element. Just put that one straight over. There's the spark element. And a few more of those held into his mouth via the depth channel. So also along with the fire and explosions in this shot, there's dusty environment. He's pretty big, so he's going to cause a lot of dust, and he's just transformed from his land character into his animating character. He's actually 5 trucks that come together to make Devastator. So there's a lot of sand and dirt flying around that's previously there from other shots. So we need to find some sand, some smoke. So I've got some smoke that are from the element library. And this time we're going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to want this smoke element to track around with the camera, so it's permanently facing the camera. Just close off a couple. So here's our scene. And with this card, I can now go ahead. That's a rest position for Devastator right there. But we know where he is. Get rid of the rest of his body. So there's Devastator right there. So I can position this underneath his body. Get a lot of dust and smoke underneath his body. And now when I come to, I'm just going to turn Devastator off here, just to show you so it's quick. So we got the camera, and just with plugging this camera into the look control of the Transform Geo, we're able to keep that card perpendicular to the camera. So as the camera spins around Devastator, this card's always going to be facing towards the camera. So it's quite handy, so you don't get the edge of the card peel around. And it works quite well when you're adding dust and smoke especially. It may not work quite as well for explosions, but for this situation, the spinning around looking at camera was perfect. So as you can see, I've got a couple of cards in here. Explosion for his mouth, dust under his body. Now I'm going to go to another frame here, just to show you another part. So we see that card spin around. That element now turns off from his mouth because the truck's no longer in his mouth. And I'm looking for an element for when the truck is eaten up and it spits out the back. So if we have a look at Devastator here, we can see at the back here, there's a big hole right here. That's where we want a big mushroom cloud explosion, fireworks spitting out the back. To go in, we're getting some dust rendered from our particle department, and we're just going to get some explosions and sparks that come flying out of there. So again, down here, explosion. So I've got this element, which is a nice explosive element, and that fits in perfectly with this shot. So again, I'm going to do the same thing. Load in the card. And I can line it up perfectly with that hole that's in the back, right where all the exhaust dust and the debris is flying out after it gets eaten. And if I move this card all the way out here, and then even though it might look right on this frame, as the camera spins around, it's not going to track in with Devastator. So we want this card to be lined up right where we want it to happen. And that loading in the 3D and the Nuke is just working perfectly for this situation. This is exactly what we want it for. So in 3D space, I've lined up my mushroom cloud explosion perfectly. We see our camera there recording our card. It's a little bit off angle, so I could just twist it a little bit. Anyway. So I want this explosion to be really nice, but we're going to mix it in with our CG dust that's getting rendered. So as we come down, we look over, we render it through our scanline renderer and our camera, and then we just view this in 2D. And we can see the position of our element there, lined up perfectly. Right, the hole's right there, but we now need to get that in. So I grab the Z pass, the depth pass, cut the depth out, so bringing Devastator back over the top, and we can see that explosion's coming right out of that hole there. So I'll take the flames off. We can see pretty cool. Now we'll grab our CG renders. We've got our CG renders right here. Put our CG dust over the top, and then just to bring it back so it's not really thick dust, we get a little bit of interactivity, a little bit of flame coming through. And right here, I could add a little bit of flicker to it, haze it up and glow it up, and just make it look really flaming and really nice. And then we'll go back to another frame. And I've preset a lot of cards here. These are just a fraction of how many cards were actually in this shot, but it's just to show that we used lots and lots of dust. All these are little dust elements placed around Devastator. And this comp is currently running at 4K IMAX, so it's going pretty well, and it's pretty nice to use Nuke for this job. It's pretty impressive, the speed actually. So just as that loads, you can see I got a lot of dirt here. A couple of cards that are preset. I got to fix up a couple of edges of my elements, but keeping that behind, say, Devastator's front leg there, putting it under his body or putting it completely behind Devastator, we just do that multiple times, and it starts to build up that effect. So we go back to where we started, just have a look. There's our base plate, there's Devastator, and we go down, and we see we got a lot of elements in there, just hazing it up, dusting it up, big explosions, our CG render out the back. And that's about how we put this comp together. And I can just show you really quickly a couple of pre-comps that have run out. So again, there's the background. There's Devastator. This is CG dust that's getting sucked up, CG debris that's getting blown out the back for the truck. All cards there for the elements for the inside of his mouth. CG dust out the back. Some more interactive. And that's how we got to our final comp, which is looking just like that. With the big explosion out the back. So thank you for having a look.
Now, we really love being able to bring you these masterclasses, and we must thank the studios for their support. Without them, we couldn't get such unprecedented access to these amazing films. And we know you guys love them as well, so keep an eye out in the coming weeks for more in-depth looks and tips from some truly talented artists. But if you can't wait till then the new term is just beginning over at Fxphd, where the guys have a huge term ahead. Here's John to tell you more.
Hi, and welcome to the July 2010 term orientation video. I'm John Montgomery, one of the co-founders of Fxphd. Now we're here in one of America's great national parks, Yellowstone, doing recon for our new DSLR cinematography course coming up this term. Now, we went to Japan a year ago and visited Tokyo and Kyoto, and we covered the latest in the trends in that digital filmmaking. But so much has changed in the last year that we decided it was time for a redo. And what better place than the wilds, nature, and ever-changing weather conditions of Yellowstone. Now, we'll be talking more about this course coming up, but let's head on down to Sydney and my friend Mike to find out more about what we've got coming up this term.
We're actually on set here with something that will be appearing in one of the DOP courses. We're actually shooting with this stereo rig. May not look like a camera, but in fact it's actually two cameras. We've got a red shooting down and a red shooting across with a mirror, and we're shooting our actors here on set right now. We've got a really amazing term for you this term. We've managed to gather some of the best professors we've ever had at Fxphd, just an absolutely insane kind of roster of people. It's really quite humbling to witness. And not only that, but we've got a lot of really great new material for you, like stuff from this shoot. We've been listening to you in the forums, been listening to you online, and we're trying to put as much of that together, as you can see from this example of what we've got this term here at Fxphd. So one of the other courses we're doing this term is a course with the View software. And this is the amazing digital creation tool that allows you to produce entirely synthetic digital environments. Have a look at that now.
Hi, this is Randy Noor, and I'll be teaching the View course this semester. View is being used by most of the major studios for creating natural environments, and it certainly has some pretty unique and powerful tools for that. In this course, we'll look at different ways you can use these tools in a production environment, from generating assets for matte painting all the way to creating fully animated 3D scenes. We'll cover pretty much all the important aspects of View. We'll start with plant editing and ecosystem techniques like freeform painting, eco-materials, and distribution rules. We'll move on to one of the key aspects in View, atmospheres and lighting, and we'll devote an entire class to the spectral atmosphere model and the volumetric clouds. Terrains are another big subject in View. We'll look at the different types of terrains and the variety of terrain building tools like the sculpting brushes and erosion algorithms. To really understand natural shaders and terrains, we'll dig deep into the function editor. This is the powerful node-based editor that's at the core of almost everything you do in Vue. Of course, we'll also cover the different integration options, how to import cameras, how to export trees and materials to other 3D software, how to create camera projections right inside Vue, and most importantly, how to take advantage of the excellent multipass rendering options.
We also have Mark Stasuk coming back with a new RealFlow 5 course. This has been heavily requested in the forums, and we're really pleased about this, because Mark's such a great fluid simulator supervisor. He really has an enormous amount of experience in RealFlow and in fluid sims generally. He's worked most recently at CSI Hollywood on G.I. Joe, The Rise of the Cobra, but before that he was on Surrogates, where he's the VFX soup for Fusion CI, working for Backyard Filmworks, and also on the RealFlow team as the supervisor for Asylum Effects work on The Curious Case of Benjamin Button in 2008. And I'll let John outline our new DSLR course.
Now Mike's going to be joining me here in Yellowstone along with Tyler Ginter, who's from the United States Army Combat Camera Division. And the reason we've got Tyler involved is because he actually set up the complete workflow utilized by the military for filming operations in the field, and that includes equipment as well as post-production. Also during the term, we're going to be covering things like frame rate considerations, depth of field, lenses and costs. How do you move the camera using things from sliders to Steadicam, follow focus units, as well as SLR external monitors. In addition, we're going to be talking about things like workflow, stuff like new workflow apps like Magic Bullet Grinder, Pluralize, as well as dealing with compression issues. And of course, taking things in and grading and stabilizing, including Magic Bullet and rolling shutter correction from the Foundry. We're really excited this term to be partnering with the folks from Red Giant Software as part of their Red Giant University initiative. And we're going to have a new Final Cut course utilizing many of the Red Giant software offerings, and leading it is going to be Simon Walker, who's a Final Cut Pro certified instructor from the UK. Last term we had a new project-based After Effects course called The Open, where we created a new show open for the next FX Master, loosely based on a reality show you might find on something like the Bravo Network. This term we're going to carry that course again, but we've got a new one that will actually complete the project. We've got several scenes left to go. We're going to dive into detail how to do it, how to link up the scenes, the logo design and so forth, as well as actually sound design, because actually bringing the Open to life is really critical, and sound is a huge aspect of that. Members of the course are going to be able to download 1920 by 1080 footage. In addition to that, you can actually buy the full R3D Russias, everything we shot in R3D footage, as an additional add-on once you become a member of Fxphd.
Actually, there's a bit of After Effects in the new Cinema 4D course. Tim Clapham is back, one of our most popular professors of all time, I think. And Tim has a brand new Cinema 4D course. Well, 2 terms ago we did a DOP course with Tom Gleason, which was about everything to do with lighting, essentially. How to light, how Tom lit things. We gave Tom a bunch of challenges. It was hugely popular. Well, we're back for, I guess, part 2 of that. In a sense, we're doing another DOP course with Tom, and this time we're looking at the tools of the DOP. I'll let Tom explain. Tom, thanks so much for coming back. What are we doing this term?
Pleasure. We're doing the moving camera as one of the tools of the DOP.
Brilliant, because I think it's just so important. The course we did earlier on lighting was brilliant, but so many people asked for us to discuss some of the gripping aspects, and you've got a nice rig here, which we're going to use in presumably one of the classes.
And it's certainly one of the more exciting aspects of cinematography. The fact that you can move a camera in time and space is what makes cinematography unique over photography.
And what's going to be important is we're going to be looking at not only the tech of all this gear, but also the motivation for why you might do a shot, more than just the pretty shot.
Absolutely. Like everything in cinematography, it's really a slave to the story. So if your camera move is not supporting the narrative and the story that's being told, then you should leave it alone.
There's just so much subtlety there in what a move can communicate to an audience. Well, I'm sure we're looking forward to that one a lot. That'll be great. Thanks, Tom.
I think one of the first computer editing programs I ever used was Premiere back in the day. I guess I'm dating myself. And over the years, it kind of fell out of favor. But with the recent releases of CS4 and CS5, we've really been adding some features that I think are targeted at practicing professionals. And a lot of people are asking the question, is Premiere Pro right for me? Leading our course, our first Premiere Pro course at Fxphd, is Tim Kolb, who's a huge Premiere Pro fan and uses it as his editing tool of choice. If you haven't had your head in the sand for the last couple months, you've probably noticed that stereoscopic is becoming quite big in the post-production world. To that end, we've got a new 300-level Nuke Stereoscopic Masterclass course being taught by Russell Dodgson. Now, earlier this year, the Foundry had a masterclass in London covering this material. What we're going to do is actually dive into much greater detail and cover the nuts and bolts and the minutiae on what you need to know to do correct stereoscopic compositing. In our second term, we had a luster course, and we haven't done one since then, and we figured with all the great advancements in the software, now was the time. Leading the course are going to be the folks from Cine Post Production in Berlin. Now, they've actually formed lusters really a centerpiece of their facility. They not only use it for grading, but a lot of other things. We're going to have Smoke on Mac available again this term, and with that, we've had a huge popularity increase in our smoke and flame courses at Fxphd. Now, last term we had some great courses covering workflow and so forth, but what we're going to do in our new intermediate level flame and smoke combo course is really cover some basics, or at least things as an artist you might need to do daily in your suite. I've done a ton of work on TV commercials here in Chicago, and they're just things I do on almost every single job. Things like sky replacements, product replacements, logo removals, and more. We're going to cover those kind of nuts and bolts things that will really help you do your job well. In addition to that, one of the great new things in the 2011 release is new stereoscopic support. And I've got Randy McEntee from the Mill in New York to actually help us cover what you need to know regarding stereoscopic finishing in flame and smoke. And finally, our buddy Jeff Huser from FX Guide here at Fxphd is joining us to actually go over the modular keyer. Because I think a lot of people actually don't know how to use that for its full potential and are really missing out on one of the great hardcore features of flame and smoke.
And we also have background fundamentals this term, as we do every term. We'll be covering a range of topics, and in the latter part of the term we're going to be looking specifically at the roles in VFX and post. Not only what does the role entail, but what sort of prerequisites you'd require to get that job. We'll also be doing our challenges. We do 2 challenges every term, and these range from 2D to 3D, from design, keying, right through to animation. These have been enormously successful, and you can just see how much fun people have had doing them in the past.
Yeah, calm down. It's fake. It's a toy. Look.
Well, we've had a great look at our fantastic new courses this term at Fxphd, but before we close out, I want to talk about our repeats. We have over 40 courses on offer this term, and that includes 10 compositing-based classes, 8 covering CGI, 7 covering motion graphics, and even 3 covering stereoscopic, one of the hot trends in the business today. But in addition to that, I want to single out several courses that our members have really loved in the past that we're running again this term. The first is Color 201, Grading in Apple Color by Kelly Armstrong. She basically uses the app to make footage look great, and that's what you expect. Members have really enjoyed and appreciated her approach to classes and distributing footage to make it look great, as well as critiques in the forums. Wes Ball returns with Secrets of Paint and Roto, and if you haven't taken his course, I think you'll be amazed at the work he does doing fixes for reality shows using After Effects and the Imagineer tools. And finally, Zap Anderson returns for Metal Ray 201, Production Rendering Techniques. We first ran his course in January to huge success, and we're totally psyched to have him back. One of the great things about Fxphd is our software we have available on VPN. What that means is you basically install the software on your computer, connect to ours, and your application requests a license from our servers, allowing you to run full-up versions of the software. As I mentioned earlier, we have Smoke on Mac available on the VPN. We also have Nuke, Ocula, and Furnace from the Foundry, Imagineer's Mocha and Moki, Pixar's RenderMan, Cinema 4D, PF Track, and Maya and Mudbox from Autodesk. In addition to that, the folks from Vue and RealFlow have been kind enough to offer FXPHD members EDU versions of the software. That's educational versions for non-commercial use. It's a really great deal because most of the time, those kind of software packages are only reserved for people who are full-time students. But they like what we're doing so much at FXPHD and they want to get the software in your hands, they've decided to extend that offer. And finally, the folks at Red Giant are going to give a significant discount on their plugins to people who are taking the Final Cut Pro Red Giant course. We're really excited about our partnership with them, and I think it's a great way for you to both learn the software and then end up using it in your day job. Well, that's it for the So Week special. Thanks for taking the time to watch it. There are lots of folks at FXPHD behind the scenes, the profs, Mark, Dave, Jimmy, and Matt. Lots of people working to bring this to you, and we thank them for their time and making it possible. That's it for the So Week special. We'll see you in the forums.
Now that seriously looks like the best term the guys have ever put together. Well, that's it for this week, but make sure you keep your eyes and ears out for our extensive coverage from SIGGRAPH 2010 coming up soon here at fxguide.com. We'll be bringing you the highlights from the papers and courses that will shape the future of our industry. But for now, thanks for joining us. See ya. For more industry news, in-depth features, podcasts and forums, check out fxguide.com. And for visual effects training, check out fxphd.com.